The person you trusted the most betrays you and leads you to death, and your soul returns to take revenge. My name is Sam, and I live in Europe. I am 28 years old, working in a mobile company. For most of my life, things had been calm, steady, and peaceful. I never had much chaos or drama, just the routine of waking up, going to work, and coming home. My job wasn't extraordinary, but it paid the bills and gave me stability. At work, everything changed when I met a young woman named Nia. She was one of my colleagues in the same mobile company. Nia wasn't just beautiful. She carried herself with an elegance that drew people's attention instantly. The way she smiled, the way she spoke, it all had a charm that captured my heart without warning. At first, I admired her silently, keeping my feelings hidden. But as days passed, my admiration grew into love. Every time I saw her, my heart raced. I knew I had to tell her how I felt. One evening, gathering all my courage, I confessed my feelings and proposed to her. To my delight, she accepted my proposal. That moment became the happiest of my life. Soon after, Nia and I got married, stepping into what I believed would be a blissful journey together. Life after marriage felt like a dream. Nia and I settled into our new home and began our journey together. We shared laughter, secrets, and long conversations late into the night. She filled my life with warmth and color, making every day brighter than the last. Our love was deep and genuine. Every morning, I left for work with a smile, knowing she was waiting for me at home. Every evening, when I returned, she welcomed me with affection. This rhythm became our life, and 2 whole years passed in harmony. Nia stayed at home most of the time. She cooked meals, cleaned the house, and managed everything with care. I admired her dedication, and in return, I did everything I could to keep her happy. Her smile mattered to me more than anything. One day, she asked me for a gold bracelet. I checked my wallet, but didn't have enough money. I didn't want to disappoint her, so I requested an advance salary from my boss. With that money, I bought her the bracelet. Her happiness made the sacrifice worth it. I promised myself that I would never let her down, and I always fulfilled her wishes with love. Time kept flowing smoothly, until one day my boss called me into his office. He told me there were important documents that needed to be delivered to another city, and he wanted me to handle it personally. It sounded like routine work, so I agreed without hesitation. What I didn't know was that my boss had other intentions. Behind his serious face and polite words, he was hiding a secret. He was having an affair with my wife. Nia sending me away was part of his plan to spend time with her without my knowledge. That evening, I returned home unaware of his betrayal. Nia greeted me as usual, and we had dinner together. She smiled, laughed, and acted as if nothing was wrong. Later, we went to bed, and I slept peacefully, never suspecting the storm that was about to enter my life. The next morning, after breakfast, I packed my bag and left for the trip. I kissed Nia goodbye, and told her I would return in a few days. She waved at me sweetly, but deep inside, she knew my absence meant freedom for her secret nights with my boss. Once I was gone, my boss began visiting my house at night. Nia welcomed him warmly, as though he were her true companion. She would prepare coffee for him, sit close beside him, and eventually lead him to our bedroom. The same bed where I had dreamed of a future with her now became the place of betrayal. Their secret affair continued, night after night. They laughed together, whispered to each other, and forgot about me completely. My boss felt proud of his cunning plan, and Nia surrendered to him without hesitation. What had once been my world of love was turning into a web of deceit. But secrets do not stay hidden forever. My boss's wife began to notice changes in his behavior. He would leave the house late at night, giving excuses that made little sense. Suspicion grew in her heart, and one evening, she decided to follow him. Quietly, she trailed him through the streets until he reached my house. When she saw him entering, her heart shattered. From that moment, she knew the truth: her husband was betraying her with my wife. The web of lies had started to unravel, though I was still unaware. When my work in the other city was completed, I returned home. Nia greeted me with her usual smile, pretending as if nothing had ever happened. She cooked dinner, asked about my trip, and behaved like the loyal wife she wanted me to believe she was. I had no idea what had been happening behind my back. The next morning, as I walked toward the office, something unusual happened. Before I could even enter the building, my boss's wife called me aside. She looked tense, her eyes filled with both anger and sadness. "Sam," she said firmly, "I need to tell you something. Your wife Nia, she is having an affair with your boss." Her words struck me like thunder. My mind refused to accept them. How could Naya, the woman I loved with all my heart, betray me like that? I shook my head, telling her she must be mistaken, maybe even lying out of jealousy or revenge. But deep inside, her words planted a seed of doubt. I tried to push it away, yet it kept growing, whispering questions I could not silence. Could Naya truly be hiding such a dark truth from me? After hearing my boss's wife, I tried to dismiss her words, but they echoed in my mind all day. At work, I couldn't concentrate. I stared at my computer screen, lost in thought, replaying her warning over and over again. When I returned home that evening, I looked at Nia differently. She was cooking in the kitchen, humming softly as though everything was normal. She asked me how my day was, and I forced a smile, pretending nothing was wrong. But inside, my heart was unsettled. At night, as we lay in bed, I couldn't sleep. I turned to face her, studying her expression in the dim light. She looked so peaceful, so innocent. Could she really be hiding such a betrayal? I wanted to believe in her, but the doubts wouldn't let me rest. The next few days passed in torment. I decided I needed proof before accusing her. If she was guilty, I had to see it with my own eyes. If she was innocent, then I would finally silence the storm in my heart. One way or another, I knew the truth had to come out. I began to plan a way to uncover the truth. Confronting Nia directly would not work. If she was guilty, she would deny everything. If she was innocent, I would only hurt her by doubting her love. I needed a plan that would reveal her true actions without her knowing. So, I created a story. A few days later, I went to my boss and told him that my close friend in another city had met with an accident. I said I needed 2 days off to visit him. My boss immediately agreed, but the strange smile on his face did not escape me. It was not the smile of sympathy, it was the smile of a man who had just been given an opportunity. My suspicion grew stronger that evening. I told Naya the same story. She looked at me with her soft, sweet face, pretending to worry for my friend. She wished me safe travels, never realizing that I had no intention of leaving. The next morning, instead of going on a journey, I hid near my house in the bushes. My heart pounded as I waited, knowing that tonight might reveal the truth that could either save or shatter my life. Night fell, and I stayed hidden near my house, my eyes fixed on the door. Hours passed slowly, each minute filled with tension. Then, at last, I saw him, my boss, walking confidently toward my home. My chest tightened. He knocked, and Naya opened the door. She didn't look surprised. She welcomed him warmly, and quickly locked the door behind him. I crept closer and found a window where the curtain was slightly open. With trembling hands, I peeked inside. What I saw broke me into pieces. Naya and my boss were sitting together, laughing and holding each other as if they were husband and wife. Moments later, they began romancing, their intimacy undeniable. They kissed passionately, and soon they removed their clothes. My vision blurred with tears. The woman I had loved, protected, and trusted with all my heart, had betrayed me in the worst way. Rage, pain, and disbelief stormed inside me. My doubts were gone. The cruel truth stood before my eyes. Unable to hold back any longer, I rushed. Inside, they both froze in shock, scrambling to cover themselves. Nia gasped, "Sam, why are you here?" But my heart had already shattered beyond repair. Nia's voice trembled as she asked why I was there. I stood in the doorway, my chest rising and falling with heavy breaths, anger boiling inside me. "I never left," I said coldly. I lied, just to see the truth with my own eyes. My boss, trying to stay calm, quickly adjusted his clothes and stepped forward. He raised his hands slightly, as though to pacify me. "Sam, listen, don't make this a big issue. I can give you money, dollars, as much as you want. Forget what you saw." His words only fueled my rage. He thought he could buy my silence, as if my love, my marriage, and my dignity were so cheap. "No amount of money can erase this betrayal," I shouted. "Tonight, either your body will fall, or mine." Nia began to cry, panicking as the situation spiraled out of control. She tried to stand between us, pleading with me to calm down, but there was no calming the storm inside me. My trust had been destroyed, and revenge burned like fire in my veins. The room filled with unbearable tension, and I knew a violent end was inevitable. I grabbed a heavy brick from the corner of the room, my hands shaking with fury. My boss's eyes darkened. He looked around and quickly snatched a vegetable knife from the table. For a few seconds, we stood there in silence, two men ready to fight to the death, while Naya screamed in fear. I lunged forward with the brick, But before I could strike, Nia grabbed me from behind, trying to stop me. Her arms around me slowed my movement, and in that split second, my boss saw his chance. He rushed at me and drove the knife straight into my chest. The blade pierced deep into my heart. Pain shot through my body like fire, and the brick fell from my hands. My knees buckled, and I collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. Warm blood spread across my shirt, and my vision blurred. Nia knelt beside me, her face pale and trembling, but I couldn't hear her words clearly anymore. My boss stood over me, breathing heavily, his hands still gripping the knife. I realized then that my story was ending not as a husband, but as a victim of betrayal and cruelty. Darkness swallowed me whole. My breathing slowed, and the world around me faded. I could still hear faint voices, near sobs, and my boss's sharp, hurried commands. "We must hide the body," he said coldly, as though I were nothing more than a problem to be solved. Together, they dragged my lifeless body out into the courtyard. The night was eerily quiet, with only the sound of shovels striking the earth. They dug a shallow grave under the pale moonlight. My blood stained the soil, and with every scoop of dirt, they erased the evidence of my existence. Once the hole was ready, they lowered me in. I could no longer feel anything, but my soul hovered, watching helplessly. They covered me with soil, dry grass, and branches, until no trace of me remained. My home, the place where I once felt love and warmth, had now become my grave. Afterwards, Nia and my boss stood side by side, breathing heavily. There was no grief in their eyes, only fear and a twisted sense of victory. In their minds, the chapter of Sam had been closed forever, but they didn't know that my story was far from over. My soul was restless. Days turned into weeks after my death. My boss and Nia continued their lives as if nothing tragic had happened. To the world, I was simply away on work, and no one suspected the truth hidden beneath the soil of my own courtyard. My boss, now free of my presence, grew bolder. He filed for divorce from his first wife, abandoning her after years of marriage. Soon after, he married Nia in a quiet ceremony. Together, they began a new life under the same roof that had once belonged to me. I watched from the realm of spirits, powerless but filled with rage. Nia wore bright clothes and smiled in public, acting as though she had never been the wife of the man buried secretly outside. My boss, too, carried himself proudly, as if he had conquered everything he ever wanted: power, wealth, and now, my wife. But behind their smiles was a secret no one else knew. They had blood on their hands, my blood. And though they pretended to move forward happily, the truth lingered in the shadows. My soul burned with anger, vowing that their stolen happiness would not last forever. Though my body lay hidden beneath the soil, my soul could not rest. I drifted endlessly around the house, watching Nia and my boss live the life that should have been mine. Their laughter echoed through the walls, each sound stabbing me like a knife. But I was no longer the same Sam. Death had changed me. I was no longer bound by flesh. I was a spirit driven by pain and vengeance. I felt the fire of betrayal burning inside me, growing stronger with every passing day. I could not move on, nor could I find peace. Nia often sat at the window at night, sipping coffee, unaware that I was standing right beside her. My boss would walk through the house confidently, believing himself untouchable, not realizing that I followed his every step. Their ignorance only fueled my desire for justice. I began to search for a way to act. My soul was restless, but I sensed a dark power rising within me, a power that would allow me to return, not as Sam the man, but as a force of wrath. The time was coming when I would no longer just watch. One night, when the moon was high and the world outside lay silent, I felt an overwhelming pull toward Nia. My soul, burning with vengeance, drifted closer and closer until I slipped inside her body. Suddenly, I wasn't just a ghost watching. From the shadows I had control. Her heartbeat echoed in my ears. Her hands were now mine. Her breath moved with my will. At first, she resisted. I felt her fear as she tried to fight me from within. But her strength was nothing compared to the fury of a betrayed soul. I tightened my grip on her spirit until she surrendered, and her body became my vessel. That night, my boss slept peacefully in our bed, unaware of the storm rising next to him. Through Nia's hands, I picked up a sharp kitchen knife. The cold steel gleamed under the dim light, and my anger surged. I stood over him, hearing his steady breathing. For a moment, I remembered how he had smiled after stabbing me, how he had buried me like garbage. That memory lit the fire once more. Without hesitation, I raised the knife high, ready to deliver justice. With Naya's body under my control, I tightened my grip on the knife. My boss lay there sleeping soundly, trusting the woman beside him, never imagining that it was me, Sam, moving through her veins. Slowly, I leaned closer. The blade hovered above his back. I could hear his breath, steady and calm. Unaware of the fate about to befall him, my anger surged, and in one swift motion, I plunged the knife deep into his flesh. He let out a scream of agony, twisting in pain as the blade tore through him. His eyes shot open, filled with horror. He looked at Naya, but behind her eyes, it was me. For the first time since my death, he realized the truth. Sam had returned. He tried to fight, but his body weakened quickly. Blood poured onto the sheets, staining them crimson. His cries grew weaker with each passing second, until finally, silence filled the room. The man who had destroyed my life, stolen my wife, and murdered me, was now lying lifeless before me. But my vengeance was not complete. One betrayal still remained, and she was already in my grasp. As my boss's body grew still, I stood in the silence of the blood-soaked room. The knife was still in my hand, dripping red. But my revenge was only half finished. Naya, the woman I had once loved more than life itself, was the reason all of this began. Her betrayal cut deeper than any knife, and now justice demanded her blood as well. I forced her body to move toward the staircase. Though her spirit screamed inside, begging for mercy, I ignored her cries. She had chosen deceit over loyalty, greed over love. Now she would face the same fate she had condemned me to. Step by step, I dragged her body up to the second floor of the house. Each creaking stair echoed like a drum of judgment. At the edge of the balcony, I paused. The cold night air swept across her skin, and the ground below looked merciless. I whispered into her mind, "This is the price of betrayal." Then, without hesitation, I hurled her forward. Her body crashed against the ground below with a sickening thud. Blood spilled from her head, and within moments, her breath stopped forever. The second traitor had fallen. The house fell into a chilling silence after Nia's body hit the ground. The walls that had once heard laughter, love, and whispered secrets were now drenched in blood and sorrow. 2 lives had ended in the very place where my own had been stolen. I looked down at her lifeless form. Once, she had been the center of my world, the reason I worked hard, sacrificed, and dreamed of a future. But now, she was nothing more than another grave in my heart, a reminder that love can turn into poison. Her betrayal had carved wounds deeper than the knife ever had, and only her death could seal them shut. Inside me, the fire of rage slowly began to dim. The cries of vengeance that had tormented my soul for so long started to quiet. My enemies were gone, their treachery punished. The weight pressing on me all this time finally began to lift. But, as the silence stretched on, another thought crept in: was this true peace? Or was I now condemned to wander forever, stained by blood and revenge? The night whispered no answers, only the echoes of what I had done. Though Naya and my boss lay dead, my soul did not rise to the heavens immediately. I lingered in the ruins of my broken home, unable to pull myself away. The courtyard still held the shallow grave where my body was buried. The floorboards still carried stains of betrayal and blood. I drifted from room to room, like a shadow. At times, I could almost hear echoes of the past Nia's laughter as she cooked, the quiet evenings when she waited for me to return from work. The simple life we once shared before greed and lust poisoned it all, yet those memories no longer brought comfort. They felt like cruel reminders of what had been stolen from me. My heart, even in death, struggled to understand how love could transform into deceit so quickly. Neighbors passed by, noticing nothing unusual. To them, the house was just another building, hiding its dark secrets behind closed doors. None of them knew that 3 lives had been destroyed here. I began to wonder if vengeance was enough. I had punished the guilty, but peace still eluded me. My soul remained heavy, caught between anger and sorrow, unwilling to move on. Nights turned into weeks, and still I wandered restlessly within the shadows of my home. At first, the fire of vengeance had been my strength, but now it faded into emptiness. With Naya and my boss gone, nothing bound me to the world of the living. Anymore, nothing except the pain of remembering. One night, as the wind howled outside and the moon cast its silver light across the courtyard, I drifted near the grave where my body lay. I stared at the earth, still carrying the weight of my blood and betrayal. For the first time, I did not feel anger, I felt exhaustion. A whisper echoed in the darkness, soft yet powerful. "It is done." The voice was neither male nor female, but it carried the weight of truth. I realized it came from within me, my own soul, reminding me that justice had been served. Slowly, the chains of rage loosened. The wounds in my heart, though deep, began to close. I understood then that clinging to this world would only keep me trapped. It was time to let go of the pain, to seek the peace that awaited beyond. As the whisper of release grew louder in my soul, I felt a strange calm spread through me. The house that had once been filled with love, then poisoned by betrayal, and finally stained with revenge, now seemed distant, like a memory fading into the mist. I rose above the courtyard, above the shallow grave where my broken body lay, and I looked one last time at the world I had known. I no longer felt the weight of anger or sorrow. The chains that had bound me to this earth had fallen away. And my boss had paid for their sins, their lust and deceit, leading them to the same grave they had prepared for me. Justice had been served, and though it came through blood and tragedy, it was complete. With a final breathless sigh, I let go. My spirit drifted upward, leaving behind the house, the pain, and the memories. Darkness gave way to light, and for the first time since my death, I felt peace. My story had ended not as a tale of love, but as a lesson of betrayal, vengeance, and justice. At last, I rested in eternal silence.